Secretary Mayorkas, thank you again for being here. We've obviously got lots of questions. There's lots of issues that are still out there. I want to be able to drill down on a few others. Last time that you and I were speaking in this public setting before, I'd asked you about, do we have a knowledge of the criminal record of individuals from the country that they're coming from? We know if they're on our terror watch list, obviously we're aware of that, but of hundreds of thousands of people that we know nothing about. I asked you the question about, do we have access to the criminal history of individuals that are released on parole, released on notice to appear, notice to report, all the different methods of releasing individuals into the country while we're awaiting a hearing? Do we know the criminal history of the country they're coming from? At that time, you said you did not know at that point. I've not received an answer back yet. Do we know at this point if we have the criminal history from their home country before we're releasing them into our country?
Senator, what we are doing, and I apologize if I failed to circle back with you, what we are doing is seeking to have additional countries engage in our biometric data sharing program so that, in fact, the records of individuals are shared between the countries involved in the agreement. So we're very focused on that. The concern that you express is one that we have indeed followed up on, and I look forward to speaking with you further about
Obviously, we have hundreds of thousands, up to millions of people that are currently in the country awaiting a hearing that are traveling at will around the country right now that we don't know the criminal history of those individuals. And it's one of the threats that we do face currently, that we may very well have individuals with extensive criminal histories in their home country because people are coming from all over the world. And we just don't know who they are and don't have a process because we're not detaining those. We have about, best guess here, about 600,000 migrants who've yet to receive a notice to appear. Does that number sound correct to you? I'm not going to hold you to an exact number, but the best that we're trying to do the records on, that they've gone through the alternative to detention, that a parole plus the alternative to detention. A court said that's not a legal process to be able to go, but we think there's about 600,000 that have not received a notice to appear. Is that correct? That'd be helpful to know, because my next question on that is, what are we doing to track down those 600,000 people to be able to get them a notice to appear? Do we know where they are, and are we getting them any kind of records, or do we not have a record? We also heard that once the parole plus alternatives to detention was put out there, that was announced, that you had announced that in one of our other hearings a year ago. But it's now our understanding that that program is only in place for about 90 days per individual, that after 90 days, they no longer have the alternative to detention tracking on them anymore. Is that correct, that they have alternative to detention when they're released to the border, but that stays in place for 3 months, and then they don't have any kind of tracking method on them after that?
Senator, it is my understanding that it depends on the profile of the individual for the reasons that you expressed. And if, in fact, one type of alternative to detention is no longer continued, we can, in fact, impose an alternative to that. For example, sometimes we can move from an ankle bracelet, which is one form of alternative to detention, to a smartphone that actually doesn't allow people to make calls, but only to receive a message from Immigration and Customs Enforcement as a tracking device. Two, that's a second type of alternative to detention. Two, an obligation to check in with Immigration and Customs Enforcement periodically at whatever cadence the particular case warrants. So there are a number of different alternatives to detention, and they can shift according to the
So help us with the facts and figures on that, because right now it's our understanding that there are very small percentage of people who are actually given ankle bracelets, that it's switched to this phone, which you understand now doesn't make calls. It is a tracking GPS device. It's our understanding that those individuals that got that phone now after 90 days are turning that in, or they're not doing that, doing check-in. What we're trying to figure out is how many people are actually checking in, that we actually know where they are, and we're having a very difficult time getting that number. So there's some numbers that we know that you have and that your team has to be able to track, that we're not getting access to it. This is not a partisan issue. This is just a congressional issue. When I go to your information center here, your command center here in Washington, D.C., they're literally tracking to the hour what's happening on the border. When we try to get numbers, it is, we'll get them to you when we get them to you. That's a challenge for all of us on this and would not be acceptable for any administration, but we're not getting basic facts and data still. Or if we're getting them very, very delayed. And so it is a major issue to us just to be able to get facts and data at this point. We want to see what's happening in the border stop. I hear from you, you want to be able to see that as well. We want to see the implementation of this rule that you have out at this point to be able to get through the comment period. But May the 11th is coming very, very quickly, as you know full well, and the clock is ticking. When Title 42 ends and that 30% or so that you're turning around then accelerates into the country, a bad situation is about to get much worse. And even some in your own team have estimated we may be at 11,000 people a day illegally crossing the border. Those are numbers literally our country has never seen. And this is a growing issue on this. So help us with facts and data. You've also mentioned that you have an anticipation that Congress will pass something that deals with asylum, that deals with all the other areas. I would encourage you and your team to also make proposals on that and say, these are the things that we need to be able to secure the border. We're working on what we need and what we believe will actually work as well, but we've received very little back from your team to say this is what we need to be able to make sure that we can actually secure things. We're doing things administratively. This is what we need legislatively. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Senator, I look forward very much to working with you and presenting proposals to fix our immigration system, to build on the proposal that the President sent to Congress on his very first day in office.
Well, that proposal was universally not accepted because it actually opened the border up more. So if that's the proposal we're talking about, we're in trouble. Now, 2 years later, the regulatory piece that you're trying to put in place right now with the comment period is very different than what the president proposed on his first day of office, as you know well. If this is about the regulatory piece that you're proposing and going through the rulemaking process now, we want to talk about how we can actually fix that to be able to make sure we close the loopholes that we actually secure the border. Thank you.